right, welcome everybody. Thank you everyone for joining here. Welcome. We'll just allow a minute here for everybody to sign on for our session moderator here to let everybody into the Zoom room from the waiting room. And we'll get started in just a minute here. Thank you for joining. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Alan Levine, the CEO of Hasbara Fellowships International. And Hasbara Fellowships exists to empower and train Jewish and other pro-Israel students to fight anti-Semitism and defend and to promote Israel on their university campuses. We've been an active organization in the US and Canada now for over 20 years. And actually, today's session is brought to you by Hasbara Canada. And those of you who were with us last week, we heard from our Deputy Consul General of Israel in Boston. And today we're honored and very thankful to be joined by Shani Azulai, who's the Deputy Consul to Israel in Toronto. And we obviously come together here at a time that was difficult. I think many of us are still feeling many emotions based on what happened on October 7th. But it's also a time, I think, of great resolve. And I certainly see so many people coming together here to defend Israel, to help Israel do the right thing in any way that we can, and to be there for each other as well. And so, in that spirit, I want to thank everybody for joining. And we'll be introducing our guest speaker, the Deputy Consul General, here in a moment. But first, I'd just like to introduce one of our Hasbara board members of Hasbara Canada, Mr. Jeffrey Aaron, to introduce our guest speaker. Jeffrey, thank you for being here. Thanks for all you've been doing for our students at Hasbara Canada. And you were one of the students back in 2011 during your university career. And it's great to have you back. And thank you for all you've been doing here to help us make the case for Israel. And I'll let you, Jeffrey, take it away and introduce our guest speaker.
Thanks very much, Ellie. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with everybody and to be able to introduce Shani. So I'm very happy to be able to introduce Shani, especially because she is she's serving my community here in Toronto. So Shani Azulai has been the Deputy Consul General for Toronto and Western Canada for more than the last 2 years. She joined midway through 2021. And before that, she was also the Deputy Ambassador in Belgium and Luxembourg for another 2 years there. Before all her time here in the foreign service, call it, for Israel, she served in the Israel Defense Forces from 2006 and 2008. And she also has a bachelor's degree in international relations and communications and journalism, all three, from Hebrew University in Jerusalem. So we're very honored to have you here, Shani. You're doing a wonderful job serving our community, and thank you for taking the time with all of us here today.
Thank you, Jeffrey. We need to meet here for coffee when, in the near future, hopefully. Thank you, Alan, for inviting me, and for everyone here who is participating. I really hope we'll have sorry to say nice at this time, but interesting discussion that we can all benefit from. So nice to meet you. I'm Shani. I'm the Deputy Consul General here in Toronto and Western Canada in the past 2 years, like Jeffrey said. Before that, I was in Belgium, and before that, I was also in our mission to the UN for 2 years, not as a diplomat, as a local staff, but I think that was also a great experience, and I learned a lot from that work and that's what made me also want to join the ministry as a diplomat. So I know you spoke last week with actually Irit, that was with me in the diplomatic training. So I know her very well, and we had a very similar actually career path. So I was thinking what I can, how I can start today, what I can say. And I'm sure I've no doubt that you all consume very closely the news and are on to, you're all very informed on everything that is going on. And so I'll try the last to, give some kind of a briefing and more of, and have more of a conversation on other things. I will start in short, maybe just go over the past 24 hours that were full of new events. And I think the most significant ones were, first of all, the missile that hit the hospital in Gaza and that killed hundreds of civilians, and the entire media coverage of that that started, of course, with blaming Israel very quickly without too many fact-checking, and we heard condemnations from heads of states and politicians. Also here in Canada, some were more vague about it, some were very blunt about it, and then of course, as you all know, the clarification and investigation that proved that Israel was not the fault on this, and it was missile that was launched by the Palestinian Jihadist Islam and fell very closely on the hospital and caused this horrific killing of hundreds of civilians. So we can also talk a little bit about the part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in times like that, which is and the help that and the support that we receive, and is very much needed from people like you, students, leaders in the community, that the fact that you're informed and that you can also spread knowledge to your contacts, to people that maybe we don't have channels to, is super important and very valuable. So really, for me, for the consulate here in Toronto and Western Canada, we really dealt with it yesterday afternoon with really putting all the information out there and spreading it as much as possible for the public to know what really happened. To tell you that everyone were taking it and put it out there as quickly as they put information about the first information, the false information about the story that Israel has launched this missile. It was not the case, unfortunately, and we're still working on that. So this is one thing that has happened and really took a big portion of our time. Another thing that happened was, of course, the historical visit of President Biden in Israel, that I don't know too much more than you, honestly, on the the details, all the behind the scene, but I'm sure that we can all acknowledge and understand and see the message that his present and arrival to Israel at time of war, saying the powerful things he says about the relations between Israel and the United States. And we also saw the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada, Julie. She was also in Israel last Friday, if I'm not mistaken. She met with the Foreign Minister, Eli Cohen, and alongside other ministers of foreign affairs and leaders from different countries. So this was, I think, the most significant events in the last 24 hours. On a more personal note, I can say, maybe you'll have question about it after. I didn't mention it. I actually got back from Israel on Friday. So I was there when the war broke. I actually went to Israel for my wedding, which was 2 days before. And I think that, I thought about it. A lot of people, there is this thing where people ask themselves or their friends, like, where were you when, so were you when, I don't know, Yom Kippur war broke, or when 9/11 happened. So my story, I guess, I can say maybe fortunately was not, but I was in Israel. I was actually in a hotel in Tel Aviv, and when my now husband asked me, he woke me up at 6:30 a.m. and he told me there are sirens, for the missile, our missile alert. And I told him, we were in a hotel in Tel Aviv, I don't know, 18th floor or whatever. And I was like, oh no, it's just the wind. So so that was how it started for me. And since then he stayed in Israel. My brother was called for the army, for Miluim. My immediate family is in the center of Israel, but the rest is spread. I have family in the north where I actually got married, a little bit more south. So it's important to say, and I'm sure you know it, that this war and the events of the October 7th there is not a person in Israel that was not affected by them. There is no one that doesn't know anyone that was affected of them. And I'm sure also in the Jewish community, I know it from my friends and contacts here. It's true for them as well. They all know someone in Israel. They have family. They have family friends. So that's why I think also the wave and the impact was so big, and we will probably carry it with us for many more years to come. A little bit more focused on Toronto. So just so you know a little bit about the work that we're doing here at the consulate. Of course, our entire work has changed since the war broke. And first and foremost, we're doing a very hard consular work in helping Israel, helping families to reach Israel. There were some Israelis that were called to arrive to Israel for all kinds of reasons that we help them facilitate that. We're trying to connect people that want to help and want to donate, and many people have many questions. So we have a hotline that is working really nonstop for that, connecting people here to people in Israel. We also have a small but mighty staff that is on the more maybe political side, is really following up on the responses we see here in Canada. We have the embassy in Ottawa. We're responsible for Toronto, the 5 provinces and the territories on the west. So monitoring all of that, how did leaders react, how the community reacts, what the media coverage is. And of course, we have our own social media channels where we send out information and updates as much as possible. And we're trying to both bring, the factual, factual information, but also the stories of the victims, of the Canadian victims. So people could really, if it doesn't enter through the head, maybe through the heart. So we're extremely busy with that. And one of the things that really, I think this is something that is maybe, I'm the main person that deals with it, is really the universities. What are the reactions we see from students, from faculty? And I just had a few calls this morning to reach out to all kind of organizations that work with the Jewish students on campus to see how they're feeling, what are their reactions they're getting, what do they need. And I feel like this conversation, for example, is one of the things that you need, but also I need. It really helps me to, feel the community, ask what you find beneficial at this time. What do you need? What do you feel is lacking? So, Alan, I'm sure we're gonna get to that also soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, Shani. Thank you for the remarks, and you've I think given us a good introduction with touching on all the various topics that I want to touch on here, and so thank you for that. I'm actually receiving questions already in the chat and via email too. So feel free to start sending me those questions, and then we'll open up to the audience in a moment. But I did have a few questions I wanted to ask you. And first of all, let me just say Mazal Tov, which it's refreshing to be able to say that after, I think, 10 days of very distressing news. And I imagine it's difficult. You're not receiving the Mazal Tovs under normal circumstances here. I can see from your expression. And if I can first follow up with a personal question, is your husband in the reserves now? I think you mentioned
yeah, he actually stayed to volunteer in some civilian initiative, and he's waiting to see if he will be called this week, because he did served in Sayeret Golani in the army. So he's waiting to see, and we'll know this week if he's staying, and if he's not, I'm sure he will also be very helpful here, supporting the work of the consulate.
Right. I'm sorry I mean, it can't be easy 2 weeks after your wedding to be separated in that way. And I think it underscores your point that this really affects everybody. And I think that's something that we've been reminding our contacts of, and our Hasbara fellows on their campuses across Canada and across the US are reminding their peers about that this really affects everybody, the global Jewish community as well. It seems everyone knows somebody who was a victim or who lost a family member or a friend on October 7th. And even those of us who are lucky enough to be removed from the tragedy, were, and your case in point, after your wedding, your husband has to stay back, and thank him and thank you for making that sacrifice for the state of Israel, to be dedicating your time instead of being together for him to be there. It's admirable, and I'm sure it can't be easy.
Thank you. Yes, but we got, and we're still getting proportions from all the stories that we hear. So about life, about what we do, about the sacrifice that we do, about our loved ones. So it doesn't seem like such a big deal after you hear all the horrific stories from Israel.
Right. Of course. Of course. And I do want to move to just asking you about the hospital in Gaza. That I know my phone was bombarded with messages. Pardon the expression. I received many messages uh, through WhatsApp, through social media, through emails from our students asking what happened. And I think we all know as soon as we saw that news, if it was an Israeli strike, we know it's certainly not on purpose. There's certainly more to the story. We know that with our experience of defending Israel during times of war. And sure enough, the news comes out a couple of hours later that it was a rocket from the Islamic Jihad and not from Israel. But I do want to ask you, what what proof do we have? What else can you tell us about the proof? And the reason I'm asking is I've now this morning woken up to messages from our students where they're writing on social media explaining it was the Palestinian Islamic Jihad who shot a rocket to the hospital, and then the response is that's a lie. That's not true. And what else can we say to just convince the world of the truth?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'll start by saying that if you're doing all this work, especially and hearing all those comments, especially on social media, that I highly recommend to follow the pages of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our main one that calls Israel, and also the different consulates in your area, and because we really spread a lot of information and facts there. And I have, if you want, Ellen, I can also share with you facts and evidence that we received today in a very organized manner from a few sources about this specific case. It started even with a video that was aired in Al Jazeera, that they happened to video the attack, and you can see the launch of the missile together with many others, by the way, and you can see the one missile falls down and blew up structure inside of Gaza. So, but after that, also the IDF, that really is an army that check and investigate itself all the time, released a few evidence that he collected. We have audio files that you can hear the people of Hamas talking about this launch on their devices, and we have videos. We have I have a list. So, and it's all being out there, and we spread it to our social media, also the IDF,
Right.
the IDF accounts also. So all the facts are out there. Usually that's the case when Israel, we learned, we had to learn to react very fast in those
Right.
cases, because it's not the first time we've seen it. By the way, there were more than 400 launches by Hamas and Jihadi Islam that fell in the Gaza Strip. So since we were in this situation many times before, we learned to investigate really fast and to also send out the messages and the findings very fast. So the fact that maybe some, many on social media and not less and no less in media chose to take those proof and address them properly. It's another question, but the proof is out there. It's public, and if you want me to also send it to you so you can spread it out to the group here, I can do that as well.
Great, thank you for that. And I'll just repeat to go on it's the at Israel is the foreign ministry's social media channels, and it's at Israel on all the channels, I believe, right? on
Mhm.
Instagram and Twitter and so forth. And we'll make sure to repost that on the Hasbara channels too. And that's great. Actually, before we move on though, I do want to just come back and isolate one point you made. So there's footage from Al Jazeera that proves that the rocket came from Gaza into the hospital. Is that?
Yeah, there is
So-
a video. There is a video that you can just see it. I think there was also an issue there that they posted also, they tweeted about it, they posted about it, then they deleted it, but I'm not sure if it was the video or something else, but it's still out there. And I saw, that's the first thing I saw, by the way, after, even before the intelligence that the IDF found and gave to the public and the media to use as proof. The first thing that came out was, the first thing that I saw, at least, was this video taken real time, just like you can just see the launch and the failure and the fall.
Right. That is new to me. I hadn't seen that since yesterday, and we'll make sure to try to find that and post it. And I'll just mention to everybody on the call, if you're being told that the Israeli explanation here is a lie, whoever's saying that, sounds like they're going to have to explain why Al Jazeera would help Israel fabricate this. If in other words, they're going to have to explain why would Al Jazeera create something here that's not true. There's evidence that it sounds like is from other sources and not just from Israel. So worth just isolating that point for a moment. I want to just switch topics a little bit to the meeting between the foreign ministers and what as the consulate and as one of the diplomats representing Israel in Canada, what are the biggest takeaways from the meeting between the foreign minister of Canada and the foreign minister of Israel last week? What is it that Israel is? What can you tell us about the state of discussions now? And obviously, all hope that that all Western governments remain strongly in support of Israel for as long as necessary here. What can you share with us to be aware of?
Let me start by saying just that, like I said before, we have our embassy in Ottawa that are the ones that are in contact with the federal government. But what I can share, and I know that is the case with not just Minister Jolie, but also others that visited Israel. I think that in all those conversations, it's clear to all sides that Israel is fighting not just for itself, but also for the Western world. The threat that Hamas made when they launched this attack, and the things that their leaders said on live TV, or maybe not live, but on that were we saw them on TV, is that they're coming after Israel and the Jews. I don't remember the wording, excuse me, but and after that, the Western world, the Christians. So it might start with Israel and the Jews, but like we saw with ISIS, this is a very similar organization, both in the way it acts and both on its in its goals and what it's trying to achieve. So I know that with Minister Jolie and others, ministers were got to see the footages and videos that were taken from the communities in the West, some horrific photos that I think first of all, this attack is not similar to anything else we've ever seen, but I feel like Israel has also made some kind of shift in the way we choose to in our strategy on how to address the world, and that's why you see on social official accounts very graphic content and non-apologetic, and everything is pretty much out there because this is usually the sites that we see at the other side choose to show to the world. And I guess Israel this time took in a way a similar approach of putting everything out there and not saving the hard images from its audience. So this is part of the things that were there. I know some of the politicians, the leaders that arrived to Israel in a later point, because at this point, I don't think those settlements, those kibbutzim, those communities were clear yet. Sorry. They were taken to those places to see the horrific sights that I think we can't even imagine. I've seen some things that I can't close my eyes without seeing again. Every time I go to sleep, or trying to at least, and the I don't know if to say the strategy was to show what really happened, to take people there, to shock them, to make them understand that Hamas is acting exactly like ISIS. This is not a liberation movements. You don't liberate anything by murdering babies and raping women and slaughtering the elderly. And the world needs to know that and take a very clear stand. And also the main goal here is to really get the support of the world in this war, and in achieving the goal of eliminating Hamas, an organization that has no place in our world. And it's gonna be long and messy, and we need as much support as we can get, because of we're only, I don't know if starting, but we're definitely have some time of some war ahead of us going on in Israel.
Right, Shani, thank you for that, and I do want to go off of what you said now, and just get your reaction to this point, which is, we've been telling our students as Hasbara to really we have to frame the discussion here on campuses as it's a discussion not about a war. It's not just any war. This is self-defense against one of the most grotesque massacres that in recent memory, right? And we have been, just like you mentioned, don't spare anyone the details. If we just talk about war and sort of what's going on today in the news, it's not just any war. And I think it's important to remind people that Hamas, their charter says, we're here to kill Jews. And then when they had the chance, they killed Jews. And they didn't only kill, they beheaded babies and kidnapped the elderly and live streamed on social media the murders, so that people's families would find out through their Facebook accounts that they were murdered. It's a level of evil that if we were actors in a movie, I don't think we would be able to pretend to do that. And so I just wonder your reaction to that, and how do we just keep the discussion focused on that on our university campuses, and rather than to treat it like it's just any other war?
Look, as the issue here, and it's been the issue in other, not wars, but operations that Israel was dragged into, is really that as time passes and that's playing to the hands of Hamas. So what's going on is that they, let's say, poke the bear, if that's how you say it. They obviously knew that Israel would retaliate. There was no doubt there, and they also knew that because of how the Gaza Strip is built, because it's so highly populated, because that Hamas is using the civilians there as human shields and operate from schools and hospitals and any civil infrastructure you can find. He knew that the footages from Gaza after the Israeli retaliation will be very difficult. And if at the beginning we saw the shock and empathy and sadness and anger that the world, experienced with us, now that we're starting to see more and more footages from Gaza, we're getting into, this situation where people start to compare, starting to talk about, numbers here and there. There is no, there is no war that is, precise as much as the Western world is trying to. There is no, let me rephrase it. If we want to talk about how to deal with the anti-Israel voices on campuses and other I don't know, groups, or depends on which one. I don't know the background of each one here, of course. We have to go back really to, like I said, the messaging we see you can see it on our channels. We can see how Hamas is using the civilians as human shields. We know who obviously started it, how they started it. The videos, the photos, the stories are all there. And we still have many more stories that are, every day we're finding out about more stories of victims that I would really hope you all share with the world. And we still have 199 plus people in all ages that were kidnapped by Hamas and are being held in Gaza right now. We don't know in what conditions. Some of them are very badly wounded, need treatment. Some of them need their medications. So we all of this is out there, and it's very important to keep stressing that and to make people understand that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. This is not how this is not how an army operates. This is how a terror organization operates, and really, I think that since we can't take everyone to visit those kibbutzim, those communities that looks right now really like, it looks like hell, those places right now. But we do have the footages, the videos, the testaments that that needs to be shared with the world.
Thank you very much for that. And sharing with the world is part of our responsibility here, and we take it very seriously. I want to open to the audience here, and I see questions in the chat. I see Ernest, I see Shmuel, I see Jeffrey. If you want to ask your question, just raise your hand. We'll call on you in a minute. And if I don't see your hand, I'll go ahead and ask the question. But let's just start with David Kravit. David, thank you for joining again. And if I can just ask you to, those of you who are going to ask a question, if you can just unmute yourselves, introduce yourself briefly. If you're a community member, tell us which city. If you're
David Kravit.
And go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you, Alan. I've been in Toronto. I've been involved. I'm come out of the media world, marketing, advertising. I've done a lot of work on my own for Hasbara over the years, sometimes complaining about Israel's efforts. By the way, if you get a chance to pass it to the people in power there, that Lieutenant Colonel Conricus, who's on CNN, far and away the best spokesperson I've ever seen from the IDF. He's articulate, he's forceful, he's calm. He's exactly the model of what's needed. So just kol hakavod to him if you want to pass that along. I have a question though about, it might be an uncomfortable question because I have some skepticism about whether or not the horror of what Hamas did is already starting to become, okay, that was terrible, and whether or not it's time to have consequences for some of their supporters. As you no doubt know, a number of very large donors to universities in the United States have pulled their funding. The Wexner Foundation canceled its relationship with the Kennedy School of Public Affairs at Harvard. The Huntsman Foundation, John Huntsman, I mean, they're Mormons, they're not Jewish. 60 million plus over the years to Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania. They declared that their checkbook is now closed because of the anti-Semitism at Penn. The head of the the Palestinian Students Union at the NYU Law School, vicious public statements about this. A large law firm in Chicago withdrew their job offer to her. Is it time for us to create these kinds of things? Should we be creating a defund York University campaign? Should we be having high-profile Jewish donors to the U of T and especially to York publicly announce that they're not going to give any more money? Should we publish the names of the student leaders that have come out with these terribly anti-Semitic statements and invite companies to know who they are in case they want to consider not hiring them? Are these tactics unproductive or are they productive? Because I'm worried that this has really quickly drifted into the yes, Hamas is terrible, but category, which is a license to all these groups to attack the entire legitimacy of Israel. So it's a question. I'm not saying that we should, but they're getting quite aggressive in the US about pushing back against this stuff and letting these students know there's no free ride. They can't just write all this stuff with no consequences. So I'd be interested in whether that's a strategy you've considered, whether you would advise us, whatever you do, don't do that, it's terrible, or would it be something worth thinking about? Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you, David. Very nice to meet you. The short answer for this would be, it's not my place to say or decide. Especially as someone that, you know, I represent the state of Israel, and although our greatest friends and supporters here are the Jewish community, I don't represent them and speak on their behalf. That's, I think, a great question. Sorry, my dog is here barking. That's I think it depends. I guess it depends, you know. Each person knows his community, his partners, the institutions they work with, they donate to, so each person in a different country, in a different city, would find this beneficial or not beneficial in different ways. It is interesting to see whether or not this affects, let's say, universities. Interesting to ask ourselves also voices I heard in a different context, but still, is that actually pulling us away from the table, and decreasing our taking our voice off the table and distance ourselves from the life of where we live, the society in which we live. So I think that this question is very different from community to community, person to each person, of what they feel, their partners, where they live. It will be interesting to see if the effect of it. Maybe we can look at this. We can look at the state now. We could, as some kind of experimental. What we saw this far until now, as experiments to see if that really changes these organizations and the way they choose to act or not to act. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, thank you, Shani, and I can just add from Hasbara's perspective as a Canadian nonprofit and an American nonprofit, we applaud those efforts, and we have more we will be able to say in the coming days and weeks on that. Thank you for your question, David. Let's go to Talia Art. Talia, I see your hand is raised. Please, if you can turn on your microphone and introduce yourself, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you hear? Oh, good. Okay. My name is Talia, and I'm in Toronto. And first of all, I want to thank you, Shani, very, very much. I do want to wish you a mazel tov, and I think it's really important for us to also have this transcendent capacity of ours to be besimcha in the midst of all of the horror around us. Our ancestors did it, and Simchas Torah was a really interesting challenge. In that vein, and it goes on. You're a terrific diplomat. How you handled the last question, also. So we are in good hands. I appreciate that. I just wanted to. I have many points. I put some in the chat. I've been on this issue for over 20 years. It first started when I was in Israel in the Second Intifada, and I was about to board a plane home when this broke out. And I said to my cousin, who was a journalist at the time, I said, "We're losing the propaganda war. I think we're fighting this. The big front is the media war." I've been supporting Hasbara for years, honest reporting. I knew Robert Walker from the beginning. I spoke to him extensively a few days ago, trying to help and frame things in a little bit differently. So I've been studying it and intensively involved in this issue. And of course, we're in a misinformation storm. At least everybody knows that. So I think we need to own the narrative and recognize that we can all do something in this, in small ways and big ways, and every opportunity with Jews and non-Jews. There's a way of getting a certain message out. So I just wanted. I have a question, and I know I can ramble, and I apologize. I want to refer people to Dr. Ruth Weiss of Harvard, who on TorahCafe.com did a beautiful piece. It's 30 minutes, called "The Arab War Against the Jews." She names all of the issues and what's happening on campus, and also how it's the Jewish psyche, particularly on the left, that's been split. And I think we need to unify and heal our own house first, and then we've got more power. And that's where I'm starting with, mostly with other Jews, and particularly young people who are now have this kind of cognitive dissonance are asking questions and can be deprogrammed from my perspective. So we need this cognitive dissonance. The thing that Bruce Weiss talks about is to get out of the defendant's chair, because you're in a disempowered, and we're always defending against the mud that's being slung. I think we need to go on the offensive. We need to name it differently. This isn't a war, because it's not like nations fighting over land. It's a genocidal, proclamation that we've been living under for 80 years. It's a cancer. And it's not just our cancer, it's a cancer on the world. And then, we have a Jewish mission statement that can bring together also religious, non-religious, tikkun olam, and that we're ambassadors of light, right?
Talia, thank you for that. I do want to ask the Deputy Consul.
Just one last point. Okay. I'm also part of this. My mother's a Holocaust survivor. I'm part of the second generation group. And we are coming together to have an open letter to do that. I think we need to do the media campaign. We never show our pain. We're always into, showing our Nobel Prizes and all that. But this posters, the bring them home posters, to just put that out so that there are faces and there are names to the hostages and the people who've been killed. And one last thing is, massacre is not resistance. We need to circle the wagon. And there is another group called Women Waging Peace. These are Arabs and Jewish women. I think women's voices need to be part of this, like in a big way, because there's a lot of testosterone and they're the decision makers. But the women in the women's groups that I've been in have a different take. So if I may just, if you'll indulge me one more second, what they are saying.
And thank you for that, Talia. I'm just going to ask the Deputy Consul General to weigh in, since we're running out of time here and want to put in just one last question. Go ahead, Deputy Consul General.
So I actually think I touched that a little bit. I think that this time our strategy, and it was clear to me as someone that does a lot of public diplomacy in my position, that we decided on a strategy that is different from previous operations, conflicts, security issues, that we are, first of all, the use of the word, really genocide was used and is being used, because this is actually what was the goal. And we see it black on white on the papers that the terrorists came with to Israel: kill as much Jews as possible. And I say it on purpose. It's Jews. It's not even Israelis. So we're clear on that. And putting out all the footages and saying out loud that this is the goal of this war, and there is an implication of calling that a war, both legally inside of Israel, both internationally. So the decision to say and to call it war is very well thought. And until now, we saw in Gaza operation. Here, for many reasons. Some of them are we know, some of them we don't know. It was declared as war. And I think we really changed the way we operate this time in the media level, but we're still working with the same media that we, dealt a few years ago. It's not like the world is a white paper waiting for us to, put what we want on it. We came to a media that is already has its baggage, has it the history with us. And what makes it much harder, of course, is social media. I don't believe we have time to go into this, but this obviously changed and continue to change and fake news and AI and so many things and bots that really, changes this sphere. And so, and I really appreciate what you said. I learned some things from that, and I feel like some of that was really is really some things that we use this time, that we really try to do those things. Ellen, you're on mute. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all of your time. And thank you for taking an hour here. I know as a diplomat and official representative of the State of Israel, you have a lot to deal with. And for you to take an hour here to talk to us and our students, it means a lot. And thank you. To close out our session, I just want to bring up Mr. Jeffrey Aaron as well to say a few closing remarks. And before I do, I'll just remind everybody that we have another session tomorrow with a member of Knesset, Mr. Dan Iluz, who's originally from Montreal, of course, before making Aliyah. And he'll be speaking with us and sharing his thoughts tomorrow. And thank you to everyone who joined here for taking the time here to be part of this. It's a crucial time, and everybody's involvement makes a big difference. And so thank you all. And Jeff?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Deputy Consul General Azulai, thank you very much for joining us here. We're all more educated for your time, so thank you very much for that. And a bit of housekeeping as well. We want to make sure that everybody knows that we have applications open for the December 24th trip to the next mission of students to Israel. So please, if you know of anyone, let them know, because I can say personally, it is a life-changing trip. There's no single event that has changed my life, my direction more than Hasbara Fellowships. Made me much more educated, taught me how to learn, and made me much more connected. So it is fantastic. Recommend it to everyone. And to Shani's point about this has touched absolutely everyone, I'll share one quick thing. A colleague of mine is one of those 199 at least hostages taken to Gaza. His wife was found murdered. His child was with his grandparents because they were down at the concert. And every single day, that child is asking his grandparents, "I'm done. Siamti, and I want to go back to mom and dad right now." So think of these real stories that are happening here. When we look at all of these images, these are real people that have had their lives torn apart, and you're fighting for something important. There's something that everybody can do. Everybody in Israel is a part of this war effort. Whether they're called up or not, they're finding how to volunteer and what to do. And there are things that we can all do here. So take this as a jumping off point. We should all be doing whatever we can, find things to do, help out, think of things. We can all be doing something to help out our brothers and sisters in Israel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thank you.